everyone, and welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's very short video, we're going to go over a new tool that is in Shop OklaRoots. Today, we're going to go over the boxed round accent tool. Now, if you're unfamiliar with our tools, I just want to let you know that if you go to shopoklaRoots.com, you might have noticed that we have some really fun acrylic template sets, and these are for bag patterns mainly. But we have another side of the section called the Okla Tools, and these are also acrylic templates, but they can be used with every project, any and every project. Think fancy straps, think Okla rulers, think all kinds of tools that you could really use all the time. And so this is another Okla tool that I think you're gonna really like, especially if you like making boxed bags. So I was looking around online at various designer bags, window shopping as usual, and I noticed a feature on a lot of these bags that I really liked, and I wanted to incorporate in my own bags. And so when I was doing it, I was like, well, you know what? Depending on the bag, depending on what look I'm going for, the size might change. And I'd really love to have a tool to help me do this, but I don't want to have like a whole bunch of tools for every different size. So this is where this tool idea came from. So I want to show you what you can do with this. So this is a picnic pouch, and it has a pretty large box bottom. I love this little rounded detail. That's the look I was going for. And that's why I came up with the tool. So with this tool right here, you can make various sizes for these little accents. So you can make a 4.5 inch, 3.5 inch, 2.5 inch, or the itty bitty 1.5 inch, depending on your bag size. On this one right here, I believe I used the 3.5 inch size. And on this little snack pouch with the itty bitty corners, I use the 1.5 inch size. So you can have a lot of fun with these little accent panels, but I did want to mention that you don't always have to use the smallest size available for the box corner. You could use a much larger size, and you can see then they kind of come together in the middle like this. We're gonna go over in detail all of this. We're gonna go over how to use it with vinyl, how to use it with quilt cotton. We're gonna go over if you wanna make it big or small, things like that. We're gonna really dive into how this tool is used. I just wanted to show you, like, this is what it looks like, and it's a really fun way to play with this. Now, on this bag here, obviously, it's standing out, right? Like I have lime green and then like a dark purple. However, the design I've seen the most of is that you use the same vinyl. So if you did this bag, for example, and I had the lime green on the bottom, and then I just did the lime green accents, it's very subtle, but it's still a really beautiful way to have an accent on those box corners. So if you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shoutouts, leave them down below. If there's other sizes you'd like to see, let me know. I would say this is a pretty good starter size. However, like, I could go bigger. So I might make like a large version of this in the future if there's interest in like the big box bottoms. Definitely don't want to go smaller than 1.5 inch circle. You start really losing the circle based on your seam allowance when you're doing that. So you got to be careful with the smaller ones, but you could definitely go bigger. So if you're interested in a bigger version of this template after you give it a try, let me know. I also want to mention that if you're watching this video on the day of the release, this template will be coming into the shop tomorrow. So this template debuts in Shop OklaRoots on August 23rd, 2024 at 7 p.m. Eastern. So if it is before that day and time, this is not in the shop yet. However, it will be in the shop starting at that time. If it sells out, we will restock, so don't worry. If you can't get this right away, there'll be plenty of more coming. All right, guys, let's get started. All right, so when it comes to material requirements to use this tool, really you can use whatever you want. I would suggest either like a lightweight faux leather or vinyl or cork. You can even use quilt cotton, which we'll get to in just a minute. So first we're gonna go over how to use it with a raw edge material, which is what I consider, like I said, vinyl, faux leather, cork, things like that. So as you can see over here on the right, I have 2 cuts of my snack bag base already cut out, and I used my template to do that. And what I wanna do is add a couple little accents to the sides of these box corners. And I want to show you the difference in sizes. So this is the smallest size. This is the 1.5 inch size. And it's just like a little tiny patch on those corners. And you can see with this one, those little patches, they don't connect along the sides or the bottom. If this is the look you like, then you're going to use a smaller size than your corners. However, I also like this smaller size because that means that the seams are not bulky. I don't have any of the extra accent pieces in the bottom seam or right here where everything connects or the side seam. versus on this one here that I made where I used the next size up, the 2.5-inch circles, and you can see it is going to be in all the seams. However, this kind of creates like a cohesive kind of mountain little hill look, which is really, really nice as well. So when you're picking the size, you just want to think, do you want it to be in the seam on the sides and then the bottom, or do you not? If you're worried about bulk, I would suggest you do not have it in these seams, and I'll show you how to check for that with the tool. So for example, here is my box bottom, and you can use this for any pattern piece that has a box bottom. I'm going to take my tool and I'm just going to lay it over that boxed bottom. Now, I don't know if you guys can see this well in the video, but what I'm doing is I'm lining up the dashed rectangle right here. So I have a dashed line going horizontally and a dashed line going vertically. And I'm lining that up with that box corner. The very center of my tool, which has a hole in it, is right on the inner corner of that box corner. And now when I do this, I can see my 1.5-inch circle is right here on the inside. And the ends of that 3/4 circle come inside the box bottom, so they don't extend over the edge, see? If I go up to the next one, the 2.5-inch circle, you see where my pen is? It's off the edge of my bottom of my snack bag. And when I go around, it's gonna go off the other edge as well. That's perfectly fine. You can still use it. I mean, you could use, I wouldn't suggest the 4.5-inch circle for this one because it's not gonna cover a whole lot, but you could even do the 3.5-inch circle for this one. It's okay if it goes way off the edge of the side and the bottom, because what you see from where the edge of your material is and then following that curve is what's gonna be seen in the end. So I'll show you both of them. Let's say we want to start with the 1.5-inch circle and we want to add that to this corner of our boxed snack bag. I'm going to grab my vinyl of choice and I'm going to lay my tool over it. Now with this tool, you can see we have these straight lines and we have the curved lines. And the curved lines are just the extension of the circle. That's just kind of a visualization. These straight lines, I'll show you what to do with those in just a moment. But when you're looking at this, we also have the lines going in towards the center of the circle. So when you're working with this, from the straight, perpendicular, and horizontal lines coming towards that center dot, and then around the circle, that inner part is what you're gonna see. So if you have pattern placement here, remember, anything in this dashed rectangle area is not gonna be seen in the end. It's gonna be cut off. Only what you see in the circular part inside the cutout line is what's going to be seen. So when I lay this down, I can actually lay it so it's the corner part is hanging off the edge, and that's perfectly fine because all this is going to get cut off anyways. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make sure I have enough space for this inner circle right here. Now, honestly, these cutouts on the circle part, they are a tight fit. That's on purpose. I didn't want it to be so wide that when you used your marking tool to trace this out, it kind of got all wobbly and you didn't have a perfectly straight line. Since this is a raw edge project, we need to make sure that this is perfectly the shape we want it to be first time. And in order to have a multi-purpose tool, that means these lines have to be very tight. So it will fit, like this is a sew line air erasing marker. It will fit these, it will fit the vinyl pen, it'll fit all those things, but you have to really get in there and trace. And you're gonna just trace from one corner to the other. So you see I'm going as far as I can go around the circle and then as far as I can go to the other side of the circle. Really get in there and make sure you trace the whole thing. So you see now I have this semicircle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the dash lines here. So the dash lines that are closest to the corner are the ones that are going to go with the smallest circle. So let's see right here. So here's the corner of my tool. The one closest to it on both sides, those are for the 1.5-inch circle. The ones next outside of that are for the 2.5-inch. The ones outside of that are for the 3.5-inch. And the ones that go in the little ditches over here on the side, those are for the 4.5-inch. So I'm going to turn this so that the corner now of my tool is going in towards the center of the circle. And I'm going to line up the ends of my semicircle with those dashed lines on the very edge of the tool. So right here, this end of the semicircle is matched up with that dashed line that's closest to the corner on both the left and the right of the corner. And now I'm just going to trace right over the corner of my tool. There we go. And that gives you that little Pac-Man look. And so now I'm just gonna take some scissors and cut that out. So you see now I have that little 1.5 inch cutout, and I can attach that to my snack bag bottom. Now to attach it, we're gonna top stitch it, but to make sure it doesn't move, I'm gonna use some tape first. So I'm gonna grab a little piece of double-sided tape, and I'm just gonna add it to the back of my accent, just like that. And then I'm gonna tape this in place. And you see, you're just gonna line up that, like the mouth of the Pac-Man, with the very inner corner of your box corner. Just like that. And that's how you're going to attach each one of these. Now let's go over having a bigger one. So I'll flip to the back of this so it's easier for you to see. I'm gonna do the 2.5 inch circle now. So once again, when I'm moving this around, this right here, the second from the middle circle, is my 2.5 inch circle. So if I push this up, right here, my 2.5 inch line is going off the edge of the vinyl. So I need to make sure it's within all the vinyl, but it's okay if this part here is not. So for this one, I'm just gonna use a regular pen. I'm going to insert it in there. And again, as I go around, your pen shouldn't be able to wobble around a whole lot. It should just have one place it can go. And I'm really gonna get in there at the beginning and the end, so I make sure I have the full 3/4 of the circle. I'm gonna pull this out. Now I'm gonna turn this around, and so now this time I'm gonna go to the dashed lines that are second from the corner. So I don't know if you guys can see with this. I have the 1.5 inch dashed lines closest to the corner. Now I'm gonna go to the second one, so it's the 2.5 inch ones. And I'm gonna line up the ends of my semicircle with those dashed lines coming off the edge of my tool. So then once I have them lined up, I'm just gonna trace along the corner of the tool, just like that. And there's my Pac-Man. So now once again, I'm just gonna grab scissors and carefully cut this out. All right, so let's grab the other snack bag bottom, and we're gonna lay that right side up, and then take our accent and lay it right side up. Now you see when I attach this to that corner, it goes off the edges. If I flip this over, you can see just bits of it go off the edge. That's perfectly fine. However, this will be in the seam on the side seam and the bottom seam, which is going to add bulk to my project. And so if you are worried about thick seams, I would not suggest doing this. I would suggest keeping it like this. It's very easy to box this bottom with this little bit of bulk here in the corner. It's a little bit trickier when it comes to the sides and the bottom. So just like I did before, I'm gonna grab some double-sided tape and add it to the back of my little Pac-Man. And then with that tape on the back, I'll remove the paper. And then just once again, line this up with that corner of our box bottom, just like that. Now I'm gonna take both of these to the sewing machine. I'm just gonna show you how I top stitch over these. I'm just gonna top stitch over all the edges of this at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, including the inner box corner edges, those straight parts. That could be more of a basting stitch, but I'm just gonna keep it all at a top stitch length. So here's what these two end up looking like. And it's just like with any top stitching, you're just gonna wanna go slow. Okay, it's a curve, so sometimes it can be a little tricky to top stitch over a curve. Just go slow. And then if you have any overhang from using these, just cut off the edges like that. And you can do this for both corners, and then you can continue making your bag just like you normally do. It's just a fun little accent right on the corners. It's easy to add. So now let's talk about how to add these corners with quilt cotton, which you can do. So you can see I already have one attached. This is a boxy bag bottom, and so I have the 4 box bottoms already cut out. Once again, I'm using a size that is smaller than this inner corner here. And whenever I'm figuring out the size for this, I'm gonna use the finished size that I want, and I'm gonna use my stabilizer cut for that, not the quilt cotton cut. So for example, when I take my tool here, and I line up that circle dot on my tool with the inner corner of the boxed edge, I'm gonna start looking at the different sizes here. So 1.5 inch circle is gonna be very tiny for something with this big of a box bottom. The 2.5 could work. The 3.5 is a nice big one. The 4.5 could also work. It'll just go off the sides, which means they'll connect when they box with one another. So you can see I already have one prepared over here, but first I'm gonna show you how I prepared this one. So I want the finished size of this corner to be the 3.5 inch circle. This is an adhesive, like fusible fleece, or it's an adhesive fleece, I guess. It's very easy to work with. So I'm gonna take my tool and I'm gonna lay it over here, and I'm just gonna make sure wherever my 3.5 inch circle is, which is right here, that it is on the material. So if you can see, I have it over here hanging off the edge a little bit. That's not gonna work. The cutout of the circle needs to be on the material. The corner here, it doesn't matter if that's on the material or not. So now I'm going to grab a marking tool and I'm just going to draw in that cutout for that circle all the way around, making sure you really get all the way from one end to the other. And then I'll take the corner here, and this time I'm not going all the way into the little ditch right here, this little cutout on the sides where the 4.5 inch circle is, which is the very outer part of the tool. That's the 4.5 inch circle. I'm going to the dash lines just next to it, so just inside of those little notches. And I'm going to connect those dash lines with the ends of my semicircle. And then I'm going to trace the corner of the tool to get my little pie. And now I'm going to cut out this from the stabilizer. And your stabilizer can be anything. It can be Decoville Light, Decoville Heavy. I don't really think Decoville Heavy would be necessary for this, but if that's what you want, go for it. It can be fusible fleece. It can be this type of adhesive material, whatever you're comfortable working with. Okay, so there's my piece that is the finished size. So now I have to cut out the quilt cotton piece. So I have a different material here for this. I'm going to open this up. And if you have pattern placement, this is where an acrylic template's really helpful, because you'll be able to see, you know, everything in this 3.5 inch circle, the round part, and then cut in, taking out this bottom quadrant right here, this bottom left quadrant, taking out that rectangle. That's what's going to be seen in the end, for the most part, considering a seam allowance as well. But for the most part, this is what you're going to see. So now I'm just going to lie this over here. And so remember, the 3.5 inch circle is the finished size, which is what my stabilizer cut is. However, for the quilt cotton, I need that to be bigger. So when I'm cutting out the quilt cotton, I don't want to cut that out the same size as my stabilizer, because my quilt cotton is going to wrap around the stabilizer. So I'm just going to use one size up. Since I used the 3.5 inch for the stabilizer, my quilt cotton is going to be the 4.5 inch, and that's going to be the very outside of the template. And to help you start and stop on that circle, we cut out these little notches on the side, and it's only for the 4.5 inch side of the template, but they're these little notches here, and that's where you're going to start and stop your circle. So make sure you cover your fabric, and you can just kind of put your pen in the notch and then go around the outside of the tool all the way until you get to the other little notch where it's going to stop. There we go. And now when we're doing the mouth of the Pac-Man part, you're going to line up those notches with the start and stop of your semicircle. So that's where that lines up, and then trace the corner of the tool, just like we've been doing. And there you go. That is now the 4.5 inch size. And you can use this with the raw edge material as well, if you have a really big box bottom, or if you just want a look of like a big corner accent. So I'm just gonna cut this out. You don't have to be so careful when you cut this one out, because there is going to be, it's like 1/2 inch seam allowance. It's a lot bigger, so you have plenty of room to work with. I would do my best to make sure you cut along the straight lines though as accurately as possible, because those are the ones we're going to be using to line up with the stabilizer. But the curved bit, it can be a little sloppy, and it's totally fine. Okay, so now I have my fabric cut, I have my stabilizer, and I have a little glue pen. You can use any type of glue. You don't have to use glue at all. You can use whatever you want for this part. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my fabric so it's wrong side up, and then I'm going to grab my stabilizer, and I'm going to lay my stabilizer over the back of it. So you can fuse this if it's a fusible, or stick it on, but the straight edges and the inner corner are gonna go right over and match up with the straight edges and inner corner of your quilt cotton piece, and then just smooth that out. So this is what you should have now. You see the fabric extends well around the edge. And now for the piece that I already attached, I did not have to snip into the fabric, but I'm going to show you what that looks like. It's not really necessary, but if you're more comfortable doing this, you can. If you want to trim this down a little bit, you can, but I'm going to tell you, having this big excess fabric here actually makes it easier. So I'm just going to go around every inch or so, and I'm just kind of cutting into the material, and this is just going to allow it to spread out a little bit and make the curve a little neater. However, depending on the weight of your material, if it's pretty lightweight, you really don't need to do this. And now I'm going to take my glue pen, and I'm going to add glue over my stabilizer, just around the curve, only on the curve. So you can see I just added the glue right inside that curve. And then I'm just going to take my material and fold it over and stick it down to that glue. And just go slow with this if you have any bits that seem really sharp. So it's going to look rumply on the back. It's supposed to, but that's not something we see in the end. When you get to the corners over here where the straight edges are, don't worry about the fabric hanging over. This is going to be in a seam anyways. You don't have to worry about that. So when you flip it around, look at that smooth corner. If you find that there's like a point that's a little bit sharp, you can just finger massage it and get it nice and smooth. And just as you smooth it out, just kind of push it down into the glue and continue going around your little accent here, smoothing it out. And you can always unglue it, you know, kind of pull it out from the glue and then re-push it down, whatever you need to do to get a nice smooth corner. All right, once you're happy with how the smooth curved edges, don't worry about these little dog ears over here on the straight edges. We're not concerned with those. We're only concerned with the rounded edge. Once you're happy with that, flip this over so you're looking at the wrong side. And just like we did with the vinyl, we want to cut off some double-sided tape and stick it over the back here. And if you want, you can add a few pieces of double-sided tape to also hold down the quilt cotton. If you're worried about it kind of coming up when you take it to the sewing machine, you can just don't put it in the seam allowance, but just add a couple pieces around the edge and it'll hold all this bit of material down. But your glue should also work just fine for that. So now I'm going to remove the paper from the tape. And then I'm going to find my box corner over here and I'm just going to line it up with the box corner just like we did with the vinyl. Again, just double check everything is nice and smooth. And now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch along the rounded edge and the inner straight edges, all of it at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Just go nice and slow, and if you need to use a stiletto to kind of hold everything in place, make sure you do that. And there you go. And you would just continue this with the other 2 box corners so that all 4 of your corners have the accent, if that's what you want. I'm going to finish this off camera, but if you kind of want like a sneak peek of what this looks like, I'm just going to add a couple clips to the edge here to show you when we turn it out. You see, this is how that boxed bottom is going to look. Isn't that precious? Just a nice little circle accent, and it'll be on all 4 of the box bottoms. Isn't that cute? So, like I said, lots you can do with this, lots of different material you can use it with. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this one. All right, so I was hoping I'd have time to finish this, but I haven't had time to finish this yet. But I did want to show you up like this, how these look with the fabric. And I'm really excited because this is going to be the 4 box corners for the base of a boxy bag. So if you remember the classic boxy bag, it has 4 bottom corners that are boxed and 4 top corners that are boxed. I'm only doing this on the bottom corners. That's the look I like. But I'm excited to see this one come together. So if you want to see the end result of this, make sure you go check out my Instagram. I'm OklaRoots over on Instagram, or Facebook. Again, OklaRoots on Facebook. And that is where I will be posting photos of this bag once it's done. If you use this tool, please let me know. If you use it and you share it on social media, please make sure you tag OklaRoots. I'm everywhere. I'm on the TikTok. I'm on the Instagram, the Facebook, the threads. I'm all over the place. So please tag me. I really would love to see how you use this tool. If you use this in another way, let me know. Because like I said, it's a really great multi-purpose tool. It has a lot of information on it. And I think you can do a lot with it. So let me know what you do with it. If you're not on social media, but you still want to share your finished make with me, please send me an email at jessica@oklaroots.com. I would love to see the bag you're making. I hope you guys love using this tool. If you grab one, I hope you love it. I can't wait. I can't wait to hear more about it. I think this can be a lot of fun to work with. So I hope you're having a good day. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.